Construction worker is taken aback after a teen jumps out of a speeding car and asks him to call 911. Kevin Huntington is a construction worker by profession. He is a tall man with a tough physique who loves to make new friends. He is an ordinary man leading an ordinary life until something very unusual happened with him while working on the Interstate 95 highway in Henrico County, Virginia. The day started normally. He came to work on his usual time and was doing his routine work when he saw a car speeding down the highway. He wondered if the man behind the wheel was mentally stable as the speed was very high. He hardly had directed his attention back to his work when he, from the corner of his eye, saw the door of the car being opened. He turned towards the car only to see an 18-year-old girl jumping out of it. Strangely enough, the woman raced towards the construction worker and pleaded him to call 911. The man was doing his usual work when he saw something unusual. He saw a car prying at an unsafe speed. The car was moving uncontrollably. It really angered him as the road had seen a lot of accidents because of rash driving. But then one of the doors opened and something tumbled off the car. Kevin, in his 30s, was a very hardworking man. He was one of those people who take their work very seriously. It is important to point here that the man had received lots of appreciation for his hard work, but none of his colleagues knew a side of him that was going to come out that particular day. Kevin was feeling tired that particular day. Working all day long on Virginia's heavily trafficked I-95 is not a piece of cake. He wanted to take a day off and spend some quality time with his family, but the workload did not allow him that. Life of a construction worker is not an easy one. You can never guess what is going on inside a person's mind. Kevin, who has always steered away from any kind of arguments, was going to do something unexpected. He was all prepared for the work of the day, but not for the situation that was going to present itself before him. There was nothing unusual about the day. It was a sunny day. The construction workers used to start their work early as that was more convenient. Traffic in the morning used to be comparatively less. He had planned on wrapping up his work early so that he could spend more time with his family. He reached the construction site on his usual time. He resumed his work not knowing this day was going to be etched in his mind forever. There were only two people present on the site, Kevin and his colleague. They were busy with their work when they heard a loud, ear-piercing noise. He looked behind and saw a car blazing down the road. It was running probably at its highest speed. Driving the car at that pace on such a busy road was not safe for the driver and the passerbys both. They kept on looking at the car with astonishment. It was then the door of the car opened. The four-wheeler was still running when one of its doors clicked open. Kevin and his coworker had their eyes fixated on the car. As soon as the door opened, someone jumped out of the speeding car. The person rolled down the road. The construction workers remained rooted in their spot. It was a girl. She looked very young. The girl must not have been more than 18. She stood up immediately after landing on the road and began to run towards Kevin. She looked all sweaty and had wounds all over her body. Clearly, she was escaping someone. Kevin dropped his tools immediately and rushed towards the girl. She was shouting something. The road was wide and empty. She came running up to us, Kevin explained, and you could tell she was pretty distraught and terrified. Tears were streaming down her eyes. She was screaming at the top of her voice. Something was very wrong. Kevin got a grip of her and told her to calm down, but the girl was too terrified to listen to anyone. She frantically told her stunning story. She began by saying that the man in the car is trying to kill her. Kevin felt as if he was seeing a nightmare. He had seen this happening in movies a lot of the time, but had never imagined that he would have to face a similar situation in real life. He had kidnapped her and now was taking her to an unknown place. However, she managed to get out of his grip by jumping out of the car. But was the construction worker going to help her? Kevin's heart was racing as the driver was approaching them now. Who knew if the driver had a gun? Helping this little girl would be akin to putting his life at risk. But Kevin did not see any choice. He had decided to help this poor little girl. He called 911 without wasting much time. The driver pulled over the car at the highway shoulder. Kevin reminisced, "I told her just stay behind me, and I wouldn't let anything happen to her," he assured the teen. Kevin was determined to help the teen out of this mess even though he wasn't sure how he was going to keep the culprit away from her. What could he do? Instead of stepping out of the car, the driver stayed put in the car and peeked through the window, then glanced at his phone. After that, he stared at Kevin, the crew, and the girl. Kevin did not flinch and gave him a death stare too. But then the man stepped out of his car. Whereas Kevin was hell-bent on protecting the girl, the driver too was not stepping aside. Scaringly, the driver climbed out of the car and started following the teen on foot. He was speaking with someone on the phone. Kevin clearly remembers, "He did approach us. It was getting scarier." Kevin further added, "He came up the shoulder and got out of the car and noticed he was on the phone. the man got quite close to them, however, Kevin stayed firm. Eventually, Kevin's confidence gave him an upper hand on the criminal. The man eventually ran away towards his car and drove away. It was after having the car out of their sight, the workers and the girl took a sigh of relief. Police reached the site soon after the incident. Kevin was still unsure about what just happened. He got the matter fully when a cop thanked him for helping the girl. Kevin recalled, "He told me we may have been the break in the case, as that girl had been abducted earlier that day. We were just at the right place at the right time. The police were already looking for the abductor and the girl, but failed to get a breakthrough. The culprit would have surely got away with it, had it not been for Kevin and his bravery." No wonder the man was celebrated as a hero as soon as the story spread through the entire country. He could have ignored the girl like most of the people who would have, but he decided to help her. It was later revealed by the girl that Berg was an acquaintance of her. She and Berg were in a consensual relationship. However, the man could not keep his cool when he learned that the girl was dating other men too. He grew very jealous and began to harm the girl. He got violent when the woman tried to get out of his house. He stopped her from doing so by hitting her. Not only that, he even tried to strangle her with his hands. His behavior worsened with every passing second. When the woman tried to reach her phone to call for help, he smashed her phone against the wall. And lastly, he dragged her to his car. The man allegedly sexually assaulted the victim after that. He was taking her to an unknown place. However, the woman leaped out of the car while crossing the I-95 to save his life. The culprit finally got arrested. Aaron Berg, 28, got caught just a few hours after the girl pressed a number of charges against him. He was nabbed on the count of strangling, assaulting, and kidnapping. The girl is back to her home and is safe. This incident taught Kevin an important lesson. He realized how bigger problems can be solved if people agree to help each other. Kevin had something to share with the world. Had he not mustered up the courage to stand against the man, the teen might have lost her life. He saved a life by following his instinct. He said if you see anyone in danger, pick up the phone and help somebody. You never know whose life you may save, he said. Corinne Geller, Virginia State Police Public Relations Director, said that the investigation is still on. The court proceedings are underway and hopefully the justice will be served soon, as all the evidence against Berg had been found and it is expected that the man would get his punishment soon. So many people nowadays are so focused on going from point A to point B. In the race of getting ahead, we should not forget that we are humans and we will always need each other.